Hello, brothers and sisters. I'm Gary Walker, and welcome to the WBGO studios. And today, we're going to talk about the power of soul. And in order to do that, we're going to look at the book of Isaiah. No, not the Old Testament, but the testament of a young pianist named Isaiah Thompson, who has taken the world by storm. He's got a number of recordings out, and he has a new recording coming up. And he'll perform it live at Dizzy's in New York City on the 16th and 17th of this month when it releases. It's called The Power of Soul. And we are thrilled to have with us today Isaiah Thompson.
All right. How you doing?
I'm great, man. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
The power of the spirit.
There it is.
The power of the spirit is something that for you started with the family, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be, for me in the beginning, it's kind of like you looking within yourself to try to find something, to overcome something. And I think as I got older, it became me looking to something else to overcome whatever it is I needed to get through. So it has definitely evolved as I've matured.
And you had help specifically for your mother and father, right?
Exactly. And my parents, they instilled so many things in me, and they've always just been there for me. A lot of the tunes are about things that they've said to me or ways that we interacted with me growing up, and their influence upon me, and now as a young adult. So yeah.
As a young adult, I had the chance to see you when you were part of the Jazz House Kids program, later the Jazz
Right.
for Teens program. You stopped
Hmm.
through in the morning on your way to Juilliard, where you
Right.
received a bachelor's and a master's degree.
Right.
But some of those spirits that empowered you and your travels along the way include some of those great people that you ran into at, say, Jazz House Kids.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I had some extraordinary teachers. I mean, obviously it's run by Melissa Walker and Christian McBride, but I mean, everyone there. I mean, Ted Chubb, Bruce Williams. I mean, Oscar Perez. Like, I mean, just Mike Lee. I mean, the amazing people there, and then their children. I mean, my peers. I was able to learn from such a young age. I remember starting there and realizing I had a very short amount of time to learn a lot. So yeah, yeah,
And one of those peers shows up on this recording with you. And it's like
exactly
you
right.
guys are connected, not at the hip, but for the hip. And I'm talking
Yeah,
about saxophonist Julian Lee. He was,
yeah,
I think, a year ahead of you, but yet inspired you. How did he inspire you as you were coming up?
sure. I mean, Julian is actually, what is he, 2 years older than me or so? And it's funny. There's a big difference between like 14 and 15, and then 14 and 16, and then like 25 and 27. For whatever reason, when you're younger, there's much more of a gap. So I didn't even know him very, very much when we were younger. He was always just so good and a little bit older. So I didn't really, I knew of him, he knew of me, but we didn't really interact like that. So it's really special now that he plays in my band. I laugh about it. Like, it's kind of funny to end up in this situation. So yeah.
The Power of the Spirit is a collection of performances, a collection of compositions that you yourself wrote and brought to the table. It's not the only time you've done that. But
Mm.
how was that process for you? You enjoy writing, don't you?
I do. It takes a long time. I mean, a lot of these compositions, I should have done this a long time ago. I mean, some of the things I've written, I mean, IT department, things like that. I mean, I have voice memos on my phone writing that from 2015, and for some of them, I'm still like, oh, I could still fix it. So I think it's just an ongoing process. That's all it is.
You mentioned that tune that you wrote, IT department, the IT
Right,
department, and that
right.
goes all the way back to the family because when
It
people would
does.
ask your dad, well, what is it about your son? What is it about that musicality that he possesses at a very young age? And he go, oh no, man, that's IT's department.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, my parents, they just wanted me to do something. They didn't really care what it was, just do something and be serious about it.
You've had the chance to play with Ron Carter. You've had the chance to play with the John Pizzarelli and Buster Williams, in addition to Wynton Marsalis and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Some of those things along the way also inform the creative process for you outside of the classroom, right? Or outside of the
Mm.
formal education process. How does that happen, or what are those
Oof.
some of the things that happen there?
Yeah, that's a really good. I mean, that's a really good point. I think I grew up in the time. I feel like I was like one of the first generations to really go through all the jazz programming, which is great. You know, I learned so much. I mean, I wouldn't be who I am without it. I think there is something to say about learning in an institution and also outside. I think my generation maybe has to navigate that more so than maybe others, like knowing that there's certain things you learn in the classroom, certain things you can't, and I'm just blessed and so fortunate that I was able to meet some of these people, some in an institution and some on the bandstand. Some I'd see them in both ways, and to be able to learn from them in two different ways, and it really expanded my viewpoint on the music.
And it's also an ongoing process for you. For example, you could go back and say, ring up Bill Charlap and say, give me some pointers on accompaniment as you were getting ready to go out
Yeah,
on the road and do some dates with John Pizzarelli, for example.
yeah. I mean, what can I say about Bill Charlap? I mean, it's a Charlap. It's another genius, and just somebody who, is just gracious enough to even, pick up the phone and be willing to talk to me. And I've been lucky that there have been a few mentors that I've had that have done that for me and are willing to do that for many others. It's not just me.
No, no, I
Yeah.
get that. And even beyond that, because you must have imparted some information, and some elder musicians must have really seen in you the abilities that you possess. And I'm thinking, because you ended up in the recording studio with him. I'm thinking of
Right.
Steve Teray on his latest recording, Generations, where you
Right.
are side by side with Steve Teray and Buster Williams and Lenny
Of
White.
course. Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes it's a care thing. It's, sometimes it's, I mean, it is always, I mean, it is about the playing, but it's also a care thing. If they notice that you care about it, like, jazz is not always the most popular, art form. So you have to, even more so, the people that play it, and you have to care about it, and you have to show that you care about it. It's more than just the music. It's also a lifestyle. It's a thing that you live every day. So I think when Mr. Teray, when he saw me, he saw that I cared about it. I think that maybe carried weight in his heart. Like, this is someone that I could play with.
Yeah, yeah. We're chatting with
Yeah.
Isaiah Thompson here on WBGO Studios. I referenced and I said the power of the soul, and the recording is called The Power of the Spirit. However, the tune that really inspired me as I was listening to this recording that comes out on the 17th of this month is a piece that you wrote called The Soul Messenger, that kind of has kind of almost a Latin feel to it, but
Mm.
yet not.
Yeah. Sure, sure, sure.
Talk
Um,
about how that tune came together for you.
yeah, honestly, I wrote that maybe the day or the day after. Well, when I heard of Harold Mayburn's passing, I wrote that piece. I just kind of the way that he navigates around minor tunes and how he could play it kind of in like his own kind of block chord way. He had his own way of doing that, resolving very quickly at the end of phrases, and that kind of sound. I took it upon myself to try to incorporate that kind of sound, but also a soulful sound, and it reminded me of the vibe he had, the essence he had. As somebody that was just super soulful, you would feel good after dealing with somebody, whether it's like somebody like, I had like a security guard who I knew, or a deacon, or just somebody that in your community that can have that kind of impact on you. So I kind of dedicated that to him, and then furthermore to all the soul messengers that people can encounter in their life.
I'm thinking, as we talk about Harold Mayburn, must be something in the water there in Memphis, man.
Yeah.
And you dedicate a tune to Phineas Newborn also on this new recording for
Yeah,
Phineas. And
of
there was
course.
another special guy that came out of Memphis, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course. Like Phineas Newborn. I mean, I think on somewhere on the recording I'm talking about, it's unbelievable when you listen to him. It's just, how is that possible? I mean, there's
Well,
the first rule, it's the first virtuosic thing, but then it's also, like you said, that kind of soulful thing that you can't even. There's no way to just take, to learn that. You have to experience that somehow.
that's important, man. There's no way to learn that soulfulness,
Yeah.
that churchiness. And for
Yeah.
you still go to church on a regular basis, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I grew up going that way. I always talk about this. I grew up going that way, but then I didn't go for a long time until about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So I've a bit of a different experience with it, and coming back to it. has been very amazing.
You've had the opportunity to work with Wynton Marsalis on stage at Jazz at Lincoln Center, but also in film, man. You were part of the soundtrack for Motherless Brooklyn at Norton's Film. If you haven't seen that film, by the way, I think it's on HBO. You want to check that out because it's really a good one. How was that experience for you?
Oh man, it was hilarious. I mean, I didn't think I would end up in that situation, just, the next day we're just on set with, Ed Norton and Gugu Mbatha Raw, just, and to be able to do the soundtrack with, with Wynton Marsalis. I mean, what else can I ask for? It was really special. I think I hadn't worked on the soundtrack in that capacity. So that was really a special experience.
You've had a long time relationship with bassist Philip Norris. He was on your Salute to Buddy Montgomery. He's also on this new record as well. How did the two of you meet?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I met Philip when I was, I think we did Jazz Lincoln Center's first camp together. I think so. I would have just been going into school, and he was a year behind me in school. And yeah, I mean, I just noticed, I was like, okay, it's very obvious he can play. He has just a natural knack for the music and for the bass, and I was like, okay, I definitely want to play with somebody of that caliber.
Yes, indeed. In fact, I'm trying to remember the tune where he actually starts out on the bass and does a pretty extended introduction.
Yeah, it's for Phineas.
For Phineas, that's right. Yeah, for
yeah.
Phineas. Yeah, he does like a 3.5 minute introduction. And, And it's wonderful, man. And there's a churchiness and a spiritualness that's in this new recording that comes out on the 17th, The Power of the Spirit. And it's almost like, when I hear the bass or when I hear your piano playing, it's almost like, it's a tambourine with keys.
Sure.
The way it flies along, right?
I would hope so. I would hope so. I didn't think about it like that, but I would hope so.
Doesn't it feel like that to you?
I would hope so. I mean, that's I was talking to some students the other day, and I just said, you would hope, or at least I would hope, I should just speak for myself, that I wouldn't always play for jazz musicians. Like, you play for people, and they don't know what chords you're playing and all those things. They just know what it makes them feel, what it feels like. And so, someone comes up to me at the end and says, you know what? The way you play the piano, you sounded like, I was in church and it would sound like a tambourine. I'm like, great. That's the best compliment I could ever receive.
When Wynton Marsalis came out with his suite called In This House on This Morning, I went to see him perform it live at the Abyssinian Baptist Church. And I ran into him a few weeks later. I said, man, I really enjoyed that performance. And his response to me was this. He said, yeah, we had a good night. He said, but that was a church full of jazz people. He said, we took it on the road and you should have heard it and seen it when it was a church full of church people.
Yeah, very different. Very different.
But that for Phineas kind of reminded me of that piece that's in that suite of Wynton's, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Sure.
Got that feel to make you give up all your money by the end of that tune. I'm telling you.
Right.
If he was to pass the plate, you'd be out of business.
Right. And I can't take all the credit for that tune, because most of it is something I took from what Phineas played in a shout course that he plays on his recording of Olio. So I took the melody and I took his shout course and it became most of the melody.
I see. So you were inspired directly by Phineas Newborn.
Directly. Yeah.
The new recording comes out on the 17th, The Power of the Spirit, and we're chatting with Isaiah Thompson here on WBGO Studios, and the new recording comes out. But the best way to enjoy this kind of stuff is to see it live, and he's going to have it live on the 16th and the 17th at Dizzy's Club at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and I believe Mr. Norris will be on hand for that. Or no, it's Russell Hall on the date.
Yeah, Russell Hall will be playing. Yeah, we'll be playing bass. Yeah,
but Julian will be there.
Julian will be there. Yeah, Miguel Russell will be playing drums. It'll be a good experience.
You're looking forward to it, I'll bet.
I am. I am.
Who's Betsy?
Good question. So Betsy was a car. Betsy was my mom's black Volvo. that is now gone. But like Betsy, I think the importance of that is that Betsy got me to fencing practices, to school, to music, lessons, performances, all these different places. Because of both my parents, and because of Betsy, I was able to experience, I mean, so many things, and it was my childhood. That car, yeah. Mhm.
It's,
Not
by
the
the
not the
way,
answer you thought.
that was great.
Yeah,
Betsy's a car, and it's a gorgeous ballad, by the way. It's just beautiful, man.
thank
So much can be said with just single notes, and you certainly showed it on that one. And then Julian just kind of comes in there and plays some of
you.
the
Yeah,
most gorgeous tenor work I think I've heard in a long time.
yeah. He's special for sure. Yeah.
The Power of the Spirit comes out on the 17th, and we're chatting with Isaiah Thompson. What can people expect when they show up at Dizzy's on the 16th and 17th? I know you're going to be doing some music from this recording, but you,
Sure.
you probably got some other stuff in store as well,
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah, that's a good question. I think you can expect some things from it and some things that are new. Like I said, I mean, some of these I've worked on for a long time. So some of them, this is bit I'm I feel very lucky that it's kind of like a diary almost of like what I've been doing for the past few years. And some of them I honestly don't even play anymore. I mean, it's some of them, it's like what I sound like now, and some of them is what I sound like then. So some things you'll hear from the recording, some things you'll hear about what I'm doing now, So I think it'll be a nice mixture of things, and you'll hopefully see like some growth, and you'll see the past, present, and future all represented.
Past, present, and future. Self, outside self, and how you deal with some of those things is the
Exactly.
subject that is kind of addressed in the title track, The
Hmm.
Power of the Spirit. That first part, adversity, or that comes from the self. When you play those 20 questions with yourself, man, right? And you try
Yeah.
to come up with the answers to stuff.
Oof. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the power of the spirit. I think it was something I was going through at the time, and just going through the different uh different realities of what struggle can look like. I said, like, the first is the mind. I hear it's dealing with yourself, the internal struggle. Sometimes the mind, it plays tricks on itself. Deception, we see it sometimes going out into the world, battling with external forces, with other people, with other things, realizing that you're in control of your reaction more so than you are of that actual thing happening, and then how you overcome that. Power of the spirit. And what you learn from that, and the new kind of terrain that, and the new situation you find yourself in when once you have attained that awareness after having dealing with those things.
Struggle is part of the creative process. Your good friend Christian Sands calls it
Yeah,
facing dragons,
there you go.
right?
Yeah,
It's the same
exactly
kind
right.
of deal, facing dragons.
Sure,
But
sure.
you've obviously faced yours in a really fine way, and it's a pleasure to chat with you here. Just a few minutes on WBGO Studios. I also want to acknowledge that next month in Indianapolis, Indiana. Why Indianapolis? Why not Indianapolis, as J.J. Johnson would say, is
Right.
the 2023 American Pianists Awards Finals in Indianapolis, and you are one of the 5 finalists. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, I think he's got the edge. And they said, why is that? And I said, he did a whole recording of the music of Buddy Montgomery.
Right.
That's got to count for something,
Gotta
man.
count for
Buddy
something.
Montgomery and his brother Wes from Indianapolis, Indiana. Let me ask you, how did you come to embrace the music of Buddy Montgomery? How was that for you?
I came across it. I think it wasn't. I can't lie and say that I was the one that was fully in front of the project. I mean, I knew Willie Jones loved the music. Don Sickler loved his music. And they're like, we should do this. And people ask me like, oh, did you purposefully make this your debut recording? It wasn't on purpose. It was just that's what ended up happening. They're like, do you want to make this recording? And I said, yeah, I love his music. I think more people need to know about him, because I didn't know anything you know, and it just happened to be my first recording, and it just kind of happened that way.
You know, I never got to see Buddy Montgomery live, but Rufus Reed told me a story. He was part of a recording for Bobby Hutcherson in the early 1980s. I think it was called Cruisin' with the Bird. And at 11 o'clock, the night before the studio date out on the West Coast, the pianist, and he wouldn't tell me who, because he said, you know who this is, and it's just not important. But the pianist called and said, I'm sorry, man, I can't make the date.
Yeah.
And they said, what? And so they're scrambling around, right? Trying to find somebody.
Yeah.
It's the 11th hour plus.
Right.
And they got in touch with Buddy Montgomery, and he says, well, yeah, okay. And Bobby says, well, come by the studio tomorrow. And Rufus said, Buddy Montgomery walked in, he took one look at the music, and he sat down at the piano, and it was flawless all the way through, man. It's kind of like he had been there before.
Yeah. What a genius from the things that I've heard about him. What a genius.
So, you know, this top prize, as I understand it, for the American Pianists Awards is almost $200,000.
Some you know more than I do.
let me ask you something. Should you win $200,000, besides taking me to dinner a couple times, what would you do with that kind of money from a creative standpoint? You know,
I think first, I think the first thing that I would do is I would pray about it. I would think about it and I would pray about it. Anytime you receive a grand sum of anything, whether it be money or any sort of, gift, think about, okay, what can I do with this? How can I help other people? How can I help people that brought me up? I can't actually give you a straight answer to tell you exactly what I would do with something like that, or even winning, what that means. And I tell AP all the time, this is not a dig. I support anything that supports the music. It's not about competitions for me. And so, so when I think about what it means to win, I would be very appreciative. But also, does that mean I'm the best jazz pianist? No. But it means that in that moment, maybe I would be, or whoever wins would be appreciated in that moment. And we're all receiving a prize already. So I'm already in that process of thinking about what can I do to better where I come from, the people I'm surrounded by, and also what I can do creatively with this. So I can't give you a straight answer, but I can give you that.
I understand. I asked Jimmy Heath, when he won the NEA Jazz Master, what were you going to do with that kind of money? He goes, how about pay the musicians at rehearsal?
Right.
He was already thinking about that, man.
Right.
So there's a lot you can do creatively, but also, you can go out and buy yourself a new Betsy if you want.
You could. You could do that. You could do that. Of course.
Well, good luck to you, man. And it's a pleasure talking to you. And it's even more of a pleasure listening to this new recording. It's from Blue Engine Records, which is home based at Jazz at Lincoln Center. It comes out on the 17th of March. And the 16th and the 17th, Isaiah will be celebrating with his quartet live at Dizzy's at Jazz at Lincoln Center. And just look for the cat in the hat, man.
That's right, the cat in the hat.
Isaiah Thompson, thank you very much, man, for being part of WBGO Studios. And I look forward to a time when you can come down once again to 54 Wayne Shorter Way and sit at our Steinway grand piano, and we'll converse, and I'll just get out of the way and just let you do your thing and play, man, because it is really something special.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.